An old dusty diary holds a secret that could change everything. As the pages unfold, hidden truths about your grandparents reveal an unexpected legacy that challenges everything you thought you knew. But there is something more. A choice that could redefine your future and put everything you love at risk. What would you do upon discovering that your family history is filled with mistakes, successes, and forgotten traditions? Come discover how a simple diary can ignite a flame of transformation in your life. Don't miss out. If you are not yet subscribed to the channel, please do so. I would be happy to have you in my stories. It was a quiet Saturday afternoon when João, now an adult, decided to organize the old attic of his parents' house. He had spent years ignoring the things stored there, but something was pulling him toward that dusty place, as if a part of him felt it needed answers. Climbing the creaking wooden stairs with each step, he encountered ancient trunks, faded boxes, and furniture that bore the marks of time. It was as if the past was there, hidden among the shadows and the scent of old wood. As he organized the shelves, his fingers brushed against something hard and sturdy. It was a small metal box, seemingly forgotten. The lock was rusty, but with a little effort, João managed to open it. At the bottom of the box, wrapped in a yellowed cloth, was an envelope. His name was not written on the front, but the fine, careful handwriting, already faded, seemed familiar. With curiosity, he opened the envelope. To his surprise, inside was a letter. The paper was fragile and marked by time, but the words were still legible. João began to read, feeling his heart race with each line. The letter was from his grandfather, written decades before João was even born. In every word there was a mix of love, nostalgia, and something more. Something João could not immediately comprehend. Dear João, the text began, as if his grandfather knew that one day he would find that message. But how could that be possible? The letter spoke of difficult decisions his grandfather had made, of secrets he had never shared with anyone. Not all secrets need to be revealed at the right moment, a cryptic passage stated. His grandfather mentioned something about a legacy, something greater than João could understand at that moment, and that it would be up to him to discover what it meant. João's heart was pounding. That simple piece of paper written so many years ago seemed to speak directly to him. How could his grandfather know that he would find that letter? And why was it hidden there? 1,000 questions flooded his mind, but one thing was clear. This would change everything he thought about his family. João reread the letter several times, trying to absorb every detail. His grandfather mentioned an untold story, something that seemed so important that, even after his death, he had left clues for someone to find one day. And now it was João's turn to follow that path. He looked at the box, as if expecting it to reveal more secrets, but all it held was the letter. Sitting on the attic floor, surrounded by the dim light of the evening that was beginning to darken, João felt the weight of responsibility fall on his shoulders. His grandfather wanted him to discover something buried in his family's past. João knew that this letter was just the beginning, and he was determined to follow every clue left behind. Little did he know that this journey would lead him to places where the past and present intersected in unexpected ways. The next step lay before him, to discover where this secret began and what it meant for the future of the family. With the letter in hand and his heart filled with questions, João descended the stairs, determined to unravel the mystery that had been hidden for so long. He just didn't realize that, in doing so, he was about to discover much more than he could ever imagine. Something that would change his life forever. João couldn't stop thinking about what his grandfather's letter revealed. With every word he read, he dove deeper into the family memories. Days passed, and that restlessness grew within him. The feeling that something important was still hidden accompanied him constantly. With his mind full of questions, he decided to return to the attic, hoping to find more answers. This time he remembered an old piece of furniture, the wardrobe that had belonged to his grandparents. It was large and made of solid wood, with drawers he had never opened. João pulled out the first drawer, and among faded fabrics and photo albums, something caught his attention. A notebook with a simple cover, but it seemed to have been handled many times. As he picked it up, he noticed that the cover was marked with small fingerprints, as if it had been kept with care for many years. He opened the first page and recognized the fine, delicate handwriting of his grandmother. It was a diary, a record of her most intimate thoughts. The first entries were simple accounts of daily life, but as he progressed, the pages revealed much more than just day-to-day activities. She wrote about the challenges the family faced, the joys and sorrows shared, and how together they had found the strength to carry on, even in the most difficult times. Each sentence conveyed the wisdom of someone who had lived a lot, faced the world with courage, and above all preserved the values that kept the family united. His grandmother spoke of traditions that had been passed down from generation to generation, small gestures and rituals that over time had been set aside, but which for her held a deep meaning. There was a page dedicated to a family tradition that João was completely unaware of: the evening walk. Something his grandparents did together every day in silence, reflecting on the lessons learned. As he read, João began to realize that this diary was not just a record of memories, but a way to teach. There were hidden lessons woven into each sentence that made him reflect on how he was living his own life. It was as if, through time, his grandmother was still trying to teach him something. Further along, the diary began to include the notes of his grandfather, who, unlike his grandmother, wrote in a more objective yet equally profound manner. He spoke of the difficult choices they had to make to keep the family united and how, at times, those choices involved sacrifices that no one knew about. "Not everything we do for the good of the family is understood immediately," he wrote. As João flipped through the yellowed pages, he felt he was getting closer to understanding what his grandfather had mentioned in the letter. But at the same time, more questions arose. What did his grandfather mean with those subtle hints? The diary seemed to only scratch the surface of something much larger. There was a hidden truth there that he still couldn't see clearly. João closed the diary, but this time with the certainty that he was only beginning to grasp what his grandparents had left for him. The lessons, the traditions, and the secrets kept in that family were far deeper than he could ever imagine. He was ready to go even further, determined to discover what more the past held. The next step would be decisive, and João knew that from that moment on, nothing would be the same. Still immersed in the words written in the diary, trying to digest everything he had learned about his family, each new page revealed something deeper and more unexpected. But it was in one of the last entries that something caught his attention in a special way. There was a repeated mention of an object. It was not described in much detail, but his grandparents referred to its importance as a symbol passed down from generation to generation, something that everyone in the family should respect. But what exactly was it? João became curious. The diary spoke of the object with reverence, as if it held a secret, a key to something greater. "It is more than a relic," one of the notes stated. "It is the symbol of what keeps us united, even in the most difficult times." Each time João read about the object, he became more intrigued. There were no precise physical descriptions, only suggestions, incomplete phrases, and metaphors that seemed to hide behind deeper meanings. Sitting in the attic, surrounded by boxes of memories and antique furniture, he began to wonder if the object was still there, among the belongings left by the family. Could it be a ring? A necklace? Perhaps some old utensil? Nothing seemed clear. He began to rummage through the items around him, alert for anything that could be connected to those memories. Every corner of the attic seemed to hide a story, and now he was determined to find what appeared to be the center of it all. Then, while rummaging through an old wooden box that seemed to have been forgotten for years, he found something unusual. A small chest, sealed with a rusty lock. The chest bore the marks of time, yet it still seemed sturdy, as if it had been patiently waiting for that moment. João felt his heart race. Could this be the object mentioned so many times in the diary? He wasn't sure, but something inside him pushed him to find out. With some effort, and after breaking the lock that held it shut, João opened the chest. Inside there was an old cloth, and wrapped in it a small artifact. It was a kind of medallion, simple in appearance, but with intricate details that made it seem much more than just a family object. The touch of the cold metal in his hand sent a shiver through João. What he held seemed far more significant than any other material treasure he could imagine. He looked closely, trying to understand the reason for so much mystery. The medallion had a symbol engraved on it that he did not recognize, but next to it was a letter, written in the same handwriting as his grandparents'. In the letter, his grandfather explained that the medallion was more than just an ornament. It was the symbol of a commitment. The family tradition was not merely something passed down from generation to generation out of obligation. It was the bond that kept everyone connected, even when they were far apart. The medallion represented the invisible link that bound family members together, no matter the time or distance. It was a symbol of unity, love, and perseverance. João sat in silence for a few minutes, absorbing the significance of that moment. The value of the medallion was not in the material it was made of, but in what it represented. Each generation had held that object, passed from hand to hand, carrying with it the stories, memories, and life lessons that formed the essence of his family. It was indeed a piece of the past, but also a promise for the future. He now understood that the medallion was not just a symbol of his grandparents, but of all those who came before them. It was the connection that kept the identity of his family alive, even when everything around them changed. And in that moment, João felt that he too was part of this chain. Now he was the guardian of this tradition. João was absorbed in his grandparents' words. The diary, until then a simple book of memories, was beginning to reveal itself as a map of the past. But more than just memories, those pages brought a new understanding of the decisions that shaped the destiny of the entire family. As he flipped through the aged leaves, the fragments of history came together, as if a puzzle began to make sense. Each decision described there, each choice made by his grandparents seemed to be linked to a crucial moment. And João began to realize something he had never thought about before. His own life, his own paths were directly connected to these moments. There was, for example, a difficult choice his grandfather made when he was young, between staying on the family farm or seeking a better life in the city. He chose to leave, leaving behind everything he knew, believing it would be best for future generations. It was this decision that opened doors for his children, and later his grandchildren, to have opportunities he himself never had. But the weight of those decisions was not light. João's grandfather had to deal with the longing, the uncertainty, and the responsibility of ensuring that his family continued to thrive, even far from their roots. João could feel the pain in the words, how much it cost him, but also how necessary it was. Without that choice, João might not be where he was today. His grandfather sacrificed the comfort of family closeness, so that everyone could have a chance at a better future. As he read, João realized another decision, this time made by his grandmother. She, who had always been a strong woman, had to face difficult times when his grandfather fell ill. She kept the family united in the midst of the storm, stepping up to lead when no one else could. The way she dealt with adversity inspired João. He now saw that his grandmother's resilience, her determination to never give up, was what kept the family standing for years. And it was at that moment that he began to question, what are my choices? How will what I decide today impact future generations? João had never thought so deeply about the impact of his own decisions. The choices we make do not only affect our lives in the present, they create a ripple effect that can last for generations. Looking around, he saw his own life reflected in the choices of his grandparents. Their courage, sacrifice, and renunciations were subtly present in every aspect of his own journey. The difficulties they faced in the past laid the foundations for his life in the present. But there was a growing pressure in his heart, a question that intensified. What would he do with this knowledge now? He already knew how decisions shape destinies, but what about his own choices? What did the future hold for him and those who would come after? As these reflections consumed him, João realized that just like his grandparents, he too would have to face dilemmas and make difficult choices. There were lessons to be learned from the past, but the future was still undefined. And now he found himself between two worlds, the past, filled with sacrifices and traditions, and the present, full of uncertainties and opportunities. João felt the weight of responsibility grow. He knew his family was counting on him to keep the legacy alive. But he also knew that the road ahead would not be easy. He would have to decide what the next step would be, just as his grandparents had done before him. And like them, he could not foresee the future, but he could at least chart his course based on the lessons of the past. What he did not yet know was that his next choices would lead him to discover even more secrets about his family, secrets that were not just in the words of the diary, but in the actions and hearts of all those who came before him. With the seed of hope planted by his aunt, João realized that his family's resistance was not an insurmountable barrier, but an invitation to a deeper dialogue. The living room, once tense and heavy, now pulsed with the energy of possibility. He did not need to simply defend his ideas. He needed to show through actions that traditions could have a vibrant and living role in modern life. If you really believe that these traditions are outdated, then help me adapt them, he proposed with renewed passion. How about we hold a family event? A reunion where we can celebrate what truly matters. We can bring the teachings of the past into the present, and still do it in a way that everyone feels comfortable. The skeptical looks began to dissolve. The idea of a reunion seemed to resonate differently, as an opportunity to reconnect not only with traditions but with one another. The murmurs in the room grew, and João could sense that, little by little, curiosity was overcoming resistance. We could have a dinner with dishes that our grandparents used to prepare, his sister suggested, now more engaged. And maybe tell stories around the table just like they did. Yes, exclaimed a cousin, now interested. We could even record everything on video. That way we'd have a new memory to share and preserve. The idea began to take shape, and a wave of enthusiasm started to sweep through the room. João's family realized that these traditions could serve as a guiding thread, connecting the past to the present in a way that honored history, while also making space for new experiences. However, even with this new energy, João knew that much more than a simple reunion was needed to keep the traditions alive. He had a plan. He remembered the mysterious object that his grandparents mentioned in the diary. What else could he discover about this relic? What was its true significance, and how could it inspire his family on their journey toward adapting and revitalizing their legacy? Amid this new perspective, the search for the object became even more urgent. João felt a wave of determination flow through him. It was not just about preserving traditions. It was about creating new memories that intertwined with the old, transforming into a rich tapestry of family experiences. So he stood up and, full of energy, said, "Let's begin our journey together. Let's discover what more we can learn from what has been left to us, and how we can bring this into our lives today." With each word, the room seemed to come alive, and the conversation flowed in an animated tone. The idea of uniting past and present was blossoming, and João felt as though he was finally finding the right path. With each passing day, his grandparents' legacy became less of a burden and more of a bridge connecting them. What once seemed like an insurmountable challenge was now transforming into a shared mission. The first step would be to uncover the importance of the mysterious object and how it could guide his family in their journey of rediscovery. João could already feel the excitement growing within him. Each page of the diary promised to reveal not only family secrets, but also the true essence of who they were and what they could become together. The living room now vibrated with a new kind of energy. Ideas filled the air, blending like the aroma of a home-cooked meal, as João's family discussed the reunion that was to come. However, in the back of João's mind, a doubt persisted. How could he truly adapt the teachings and traditions that his grandparents valued so much to a constantly changing world without losing the essence that made them so precious? Inspired, he sat down at the table, with the diary open before him, its worn pages telling stories that transcended time. One of the most striking lessons spoke about the importance of empathy and respect. His grandparents had faced monumental challenges, but they always guided themselves by principles that promoted unity and understanding. But how could this be applied in such a different era? He looked at his family and remembered a moment when his grandparents, even in times of difficulty, gathered everyone for a simple dinner, where each person had the opportunity to express their opinions and feelings. It was this space for dialogue that kept them united. But did this practice still fit into modern life, where people were always busy and distracted by their own affairs? Gathering his courage, João addressed his family again. What if we make this dinner not just a meal, but a space for open dialogue? A place where we can discuss our lives, our concerns, and at the same time share the stories that define us. A momentary silence filled the room, but it was soon broken by one of his cousins, who smiled and said, "That sounds incredible. We need more moments like that. But how can we ensure that everyone feels comfortable opening up?" This question made João's mind race. He recalled a passage from the diary where his grandparents spoke about the practice of active listening. This was not just hearing, but understanding and validating others' emotions. He realized that for traditions to survive, they needed to be updated, making them relevant for new generations without undermining their origins. "We could set some simple rules for the conversations," João suggested, excitement growing in his voice. How about each person gets a turn to speak without interruptions? And if we have a storytelling circle, where everyone shares something they learned from the elders? This could connect the generations and bring forth teachings that might otherwise be lost. As his words echoed in the room, he saw faces light up with the idea. A sense of community began to emerge again, and the previous tension seemed to have vanished. But João knew this was only the beginning. A continuous effort was necessary to ensure these traditions did not become mere memories. João's proposal was becoming more concrete, but he felt he needed something more. The words written in the diary were valuable, but he wanted everyone to see firsthand the relevance of their roots. This led him to a deep reflection. What more could be done to ensure these values remained strong in the face of the storms of modern life? He then remembered the mysterious object he had mentioned earlier. Would it be possible to bring not only the story of this item to light, but also its direct connection to the values that his grandparents stood for? This relic could be the perfect symbol to inspire his family, something that represented the resilience and strength of their lineage. If he could show how that object could be a link between the past and present, perhaps he could convince his family to embrace not just the stories but their essence as well. João's eyes sparkled with this new idea. He was determined to discover the meaning of that object while simultaneously shaping a new space for family values to expand, adapt, and above all live. After all, the true test of time was not just in preserving what already existed, but in making it flourish amidst change. As dinner approached, his anticipation grew. João knew that this could be the opportunity they had been waiting for. A chance to reaffirm their family bonds and breathe life into a legacy that was not just his grandparents', but now also belonged to them. The search for the mysterious object was becoming a crucial part of this mission. What more could he learn from this symbol of his heritage? How could he help his family see that, although the world was constantly changing, some values were timeless, waiting to be rediscovered? The atmosphere in the room was charged with expectations. Conversations about the new traditions began to gain momentum, but João knew there was something more. Something hidden beneath the surface that could change the way his family viewed the past. He felt that the discovery of the mysterious object was just the tip of the iceberg. There was a deeper truth, a story yet to be told. After dinner, when the family began to disperse, João stepped aside to reflect. He returned to the diary, its yellowed pages seeming to almost vibrate with the energy of the stories they contained. As he flipped through it, his hands hesitated on a passage that spoke of a forgotten chapter in his grandparents' lives. The mention of a secret captured his attention, as if those words were alarm bells. With his heart racing, João decided he needed to investigate. What could have been so important that it was kept a secret? He stood up and began to dig deeper, searching through letters, photos, and anything else that could reveal details about his grandparents' lives. His curiosity led him to the attic of the old family house, a place filled with memories, dust, and perhaps secrets. The dim light of the attic danced over stacked boxes, each labeled with bits of the family's history. João began to open the boxes one by one, recalling moments that now felt more distant than ever. Photos of celebrations, love letters, and even old toys emerged. But what truly fascinated him was the feeling of unearthing parts of his own identity. It was then that, in a larger box, he found a small, intricately carved wooden box, nearly lost among other objects. João's heart raced as he opened the box, revealing a necklace with a peculiar pendant, a symbol he had never seen before. Next to it lay a letter, carefully folded. It was an old letter, written in a handwriting he recognized immediately. It was from his grandmother. With a mix of emotion and apprehension, João began to read. The words revealed a hidden love, a part of his grandmother's life that had never been shared with the family. He discovered that before settling down, his grandmother had a different life, marked by difficult decisions and a forbidden love. The letter spoke of a relationship that defied the norms of the time, a love that had to hide due to social pressures and family expectations. As he continued reading, João found himself immersed in a whirlwind of emotions. His grandmother had not only faced adversity, but had also made choices that would shape the family's life in ways he could never have imagined. The necklace, he discovered, was a symbol of that love, a reminder that true feelings sometimes must be kept under lock and key. This revelation made him reflect on how often the most powerful stories remain hidden, influencing generations without anyone realizing. What else did his family not know? How could this part of his grandparents' history change how everyone viewed the family legacy? Determined to share this new discovery, João gathered with his family once more. He felt that this revelation was not just about the past. It was an opportunity to unite everyone around the complexity and beauty of their stories. As he began to recount the necklace and the letter, the silence was replaced by murmurs of surprise and curiosity. But as he spoke, he noticed the expressions on their faces were a mix of emotions: surprise, pain, and even understanding. His grandmother's story was not just a reminiscence of a lost love. It was a bridge between the past and the present, a testament that even in times of change, the feelings and values that connect us are eternal. "This is the story we need to hear," one of his cousins said, clearly touched by the revelation. "And if this love survived all that, maybe we can also overcome our differences." João felt a wave of hope. The discovery of the necklace and the letter had created a new space for dialogue, a deeper understanding of the complexity of his grandparents' lives. He knew that by revealing these secrets, he was helping his family recognize that true strength lies in vulnerability and the ability to face truths, no matter how challenging they may be. As the conversations deepened and dinner transformed into a celebration of stories and legacies, João began to realize that the journey was still far from over. The necklace not only connected the past to the present, it also promised a future where each person could bring their own stories to light. He was determined to ensure that this new story, now filled with complexity and love, became a vital part of the family's legacy. How would this new revelation affect future generations? There were even more secrets waiting to be discovered, and each of them could help shape a new understanding of who they were and who they could become. João felt that the true journey was just beginning, and the discoveries that awaited him could change everything again. The words of the letter echoed in João's mind like a persistent whisper. The revelation about his grandmother's life was not just a window into the past. It was also a mirror reflecting the mistakes and successes that had shaped the family over the years. He felt a heavy responsibility on his shoulders. How to confront these aspects of the past without letting guilt or regret take over. Sitting at the living room table surrounded by family, he observed each person's face, trying to decipher their reactions. The atmosphere was filled with emotions: surprise at the revelation, sadness for the sacrifices made, and a new determination that was beginning to emerge. The family bonds, once weak, seemed to be sewn together again as each shared their own reflections on what they had heard. "So all of this that we face in life, all the difficulties, they are part of a pattern, right?" his sister said, breaking the silence that had settled. "As if our grandparents' mistakes have, in a way, shaped us too." Her statement resonated within João. He thought of the arguments that occurred among family members, of the expectations that often seemed impossible to meet. "Exactly," he replied, feeling a deep connection to her words. "Their mistakes are not just a negative mark on our history. They are also lessons. Lessons about love, about how complicated life can be." The conversation deepened, and João realized that accepting his grandparents' mistakes did not mean justifying their failures, but rather understanding that everyone is human. We all make mistakes, and that is how we learn and grow. He decided he needed to step forward and confront not only the hidden love stories, but also the failings that had haunted the family. He remembered a passage from the letter where his grandmother mentioned a moment when she had chosen love over duty. This choice, although painful, had led to the happiness she and his grandfather experienced, but it had also left deep scars that still affected the following generations. "We can learn from their mistakes," João continued. "If we can see this as an invitation to reconcile with the past, we can shape our future with more wisdom." A cousin, who had remained silent, raised his hand as if he wanted to intervene. "But how can we do that? How do we deal with what has been left to us? Aren't we doomed to repeat the same mistakes?" The question hung in the air, full of uncertainty. João felt an urge to encourage his relatives to see the other side of the coin. That is exactly what we need to decide. The future is not a continuation of the past. It is an opportunity to rewrite history. If we accept that our grandparents were flawed but also courageous, we can find the strength to do better. As he spoke, the faces around the table began to soften. The tension that had previously permeated the air was dissipating, replaced by a new understanding. It was as if the light was beginning to enter a space that had been closed and dark. "I want to learn about their failings," Joao's sister said, her voice now firmer. "I want to understand how this affected us, but also how we can use it to be better for each other." Joao felt his heart warm at her words. He knew that this acceptance of the past was just the beginning of a long journey, but at the same time, it was a path that promised hope and renewal. He not only wanted to reconcile the family with the stories of the past, but also to help them rise from them, stronger and more united. The conversation flowed naturally, and soon everyone began sharing their own experiences, discussing not just the mistakes, but also the successes. Amid laughter and tears, the stories began to intertwine, forming a tapestry of life that spanned generations. Each narrative seemed to draw a new path, a path where forgiveness and acceptance were not just words, but actions that could be lived out daily. Joao observed everything with a satisfied smile. He understood that, despite his grandparents' mistakes and successes, they had built a solid foundation that now needed to be maintained and adapted. It was not just about recognizing what had been, but about committing to transforming what could be. As the conversation continued, Joao felt that the atmosphere in the room had changed significantly. It was not just about the past, but about the possibility of a clearer and more loving future. It was a step forward, a gesture of courage that would allow the family to move on, with new directions and understandings. He still had many questions in mind, and there were many secrets that needed to be uncovered. The journey was far from over, but each step taken brought them closer to a new truth, a new story that they were ready to tell. Thus, with each revelation, the idea that the past could be reconciled with the present became a tangible reality, and Joao felt more prepared than ever to face the challenges that lay ahead. The connection to the past was now a source of strength, and the future began to shine ahead, inviting them to embark on a new adventure. The sun was beginning to set, tinting the sky orange and purple as Joao looked out the living room window, contemplating the transformation occurring both inside and outside his home. He had come a long way since finding his grandparents' diary, and now, with all the revelations and fervent discussions with his family, something profound had changed. A sense of renewal and hope lingered in the air. The room, which had previously seemed filled with tension, was now a vibrant space where laughter and conversation intertwined, creating a symphony of memories. Joao noticed a new energy within the family, a willingness to look at the past, not with regret, but with curiosity and a genuine desire to learn. Everyone was ready to embark on this journey together. "What if we started creating new traditions?" suggested his sister, with a sparkle in her eyes. "Something that connects our grandparents' stories with our lives today. We can do this in a way that makes sense for us. A blend of what was and what we are now." Joao felt his heart race. That idea resonated deeply. He had always believed that traditions were not merely relics of the past, but rather living reminders of who we were and who we could be. "We can celebrate Family Day but adapt it to our style. Create an event that honors our grandparents' traditions while also making room for new stories and new experiences." The looks around the table sparkled with excitement. Each person began sharing their own suggestions. Perhaps a day of outdoor activities where they could tell their grandparents' stories while cooking together, or a music festival, where the songs their grandmothers used to sing would blend with new melodies, creating a soundtrack that represented the family in all its shades. Joao knew it would not be easy to implement these changes. Some family members would still feel reluctant to move away from the more rigid traditions. But now around him there was a network of support, a collective commitment to rediscovering and reviving their legacy in a meaningful way. The feeling of unity was palpable. Deep down, he understood that this journey was not just about preserving his grandparents' stories, but about creating a new narrative that incorporated all family members, including those who had already passed away. The legacy his grandparents left was not a prison, but a springboard for the future. With each conversation, he felt more secure in his convictions. As the night wore on, the living room filled with laughter, stories, and the aroma of a dinner that was beginning to be prepared. Joao looked around and felt a wave of gratitude. He had the opportunity to be the guardian of this legacy, but more importantly, he had the chance to be a creator of new memories. "Let's do this together," he said, his voice firm. "Let's honor our grandparents while also opening our hearts to what is to come." They left us a path, and now it is our responsibility to adapt it for the next generations. The commitment was clear on everyone's faces, and so amid laughter and shared stories, a new promise for the future was made. Each family member pledged to contribute in some way, whether by bringing an old recipe, a song they had listened to in childhood, or even a story that had never been told before. João knew the road ahead was still fraught with challenges. There would be moments of resistance, and the struggle for identity and tradition would continue to arise. But with each new tradition they created, they would be building not only a legacy, but a vibrant and meaningful future, where love and unity would prevail. By the end of the night, as the last rays of sun disappeared over the horizon, João sat in silence, reflecting on everything he had experienced. He was aware that the journey of rediscovery and adaptation was just beginning, but he also knew that together, his family could face any challenge. And so, looking towards the future, he made a silent promise. Not only would he honor the memory of his grandparents, but he would also dedicate himself to keeping the flame alive, ensuring that the traditions continued to thrive amidst change. With this in mind, he turned to the camera, smiling at the viewers. If you enjoyed this story and want to follow more exciting journeys of rediscovery and legacy, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Together, let's explore the stories that shape our lives and build a future where traditions and new beginnings coexist. Thank you for being here with us.